G'day and welcome to my channel. Right, so this is part 2 of the part-time off-grid or grid minimum solar build. A lot of the stuff has turned up, so I'm all good to continue the build. But before I do that, I thought we might just have a quick look at the system. Well, basically the system consists of 14 solar panels. The inverter is a Growatt off-grid inverter. Coupled to that is a Growatt 6.5 kilowatt hour lithium ion battery. And the load that's going to be connected to the inverter, it's not the whole house, it's only part of the house. So it's more or less just general light and power. It's basically what I call the generator bus. You see, our switchboard is divided up into two. There's a mains bus and a generator bus. And whenever we lose power, I run the generator bus on a generator. So in a nutshell, it's pretty much most of the house that's going to be running off this solar system, with the exception of the heavy current items. Things such as the oven, which I think, off the top of my head, I think it's 2,400 watts at 240 volts. Then there's the solar hot water booster heating element, and that is 3,600 watts at 240 volts. And then there's two air conditioners, split systems, and they're not too bad, but still the big one, I think it's around somewhere between 6 and 7 kilowatts. I think that's cooling and it's less for heating. So those items, they're staying on the grid, but everything else, general light and power, and including this shed, that's all going to be on the grid. The shed here will be running on a solar system, and that's purely because our water pump is fed from the subboard in the shed here, and that's just because the tank is closest to the shed. Here's just some of the stuff that's turned up, like conduit bends, J-boxes, road centers, DIN fuse holders, bit of cable and so forth. There's still more to come. Whew. Man, I don't make them light. I don't know if I'm going to be able to lift this. Whew. All right, only that much more to go. Almost there. One more will be there. Stay. Okay. Alright, that wasn't quite. Alright, I think that's it. Now it's still resting on these freaking blocks. Oh man, this was never going to be easy. Oh shit. Fucking get it off the bracket. That's it. Bloody hell. bloody heavy and awkward. That's it, yep, that's it, that's on. Lock it in, locked in. Whew, and that's staying. Mate, I just want to show you this, just to show you there's nothing fancy here. This is very much grassroots video production. That's my camera stand there. So I'm just doing up the MC4 solar connectors on the end of the solar cables, and so here I'm doing the female end. So I've just stripped the cable back and I've crimped this connector. Now I don't have the fancy solar connectors, so I just use my good old electrical pliers here, and that's a crimper at the end here, and you see it's very close to what the solar connectors are, and essentially speaking they both do exactly the same job. This, yeah, maybe just a slight bit different, but really in the scheme of things they're not that different. So I'll just use my pliers, my multi-purpose pliers here, to just prop this up. So what I like to do with these sort of connectors is not wholly and solely rely on the crimped connection. So I'm just going to solder it. So first I'll solder the crimped connection here, so we'll get a bit of heat going. So I've got the soldering iron turned up to maximum. Here we go, it's starting to flow now. So we'll get the crimp connection soldered, and then the rest of the connection I'll just flood it now. Give it a fair bit of solder. Make sure we get a nice connection. But don't flood it any more that it actually floods into the important parts. There we go. That's got a stack of solder in it. So you're not going to get much better than that. Just wanted to show you too, this is my old soldering iron. It hasn't been used for virtually years, so I had to dust it off and bring it out. Yeah, it is always nice when you get to use some of your old tools or some of your old equipment you haven't used for a while, sort of get reacquainted with it. Right, so we're ready to push it into the body. So we've got to, that's it, it clicks in, and that's it, it's captured. So we'll get the compression gland in there. Same thing here, I haven't got the fancy spanners and all that comes with this, but really, yeah, they're quite easy to do at finger tight. I mean, you're not going to, you know, it's not going to get any tighter than that. And the compression gland there is compressing around the cable nicely. There we go. That's a MC4 connection done. And it'll be exactly the same with the male connectors. So this is actually a female connector, although this here looks like a male connector, but it's actually the connector inside. You can see that's a female. So I've just been running the solar PV cables and installing some conduit and stuff. Didn't get very far. There's a bit of a storm approaching. It's getting closer. I've been keeping my eye on it for the last 20 minutes, and I don't know if you can hear it, but yeah, it's time to get off the roof. The PV cable from the two solar strings, it's all been run in conduit, and it's been run down to the enclosure. So I've just run that in 25mm conduit, and here I've just gone into flex. Right, so what's happened here? Well, what's happened here is something very annoying. The PV cable from one of the solar strings, it ended up being a little bit too short by about 1/2 meter. There's the combiner box. And actually even the earth conductor ended up being just a wee bit too short. So it's not a huge problem. At least they made it inside the enclosure. Yeah, so I've just crimped on a couple of links here, and it's been soldered at one end. So I'm just going to crimp him on there, solder it, and heat shrink it, and yeah, it'll be good as gold. Alright, that's the second lot of heat shrink to go over that. I'll just wait for that to cool down a little bit. It's still a little bit warm-ish. So I got another 2 lots of heat shrink just up here. We'll slide that over the top, and that will be bloody good. It's getting just a little bit dark in here, so it might not be real easy to see, but anyway, that's the 2 joints here. Look, it's not ideal having to join the cables, but as long as it's done properly, it'll be fine. So now for my least favourite job, trenching. So I've just got to dig a trench from the corner of the house here over to the shed. The trench has made its way up to the house, so I've just hit the paved bit here, so unfortunately I'm going to have to hack that up. That's the only way I can get in under the house, but yeah, no worries. Whew, tell you what, I'm glad that's over. It's been a stinker today, it's been really humid. Anyway, so I've trenched up to the house. I've just thrown a bit of conduit in. I just want to make sure that it gets around the footing there. I might just have to apply a bit of heat there just to sneak it around the footing, and then from there we'll come up behind the timber slats and then continue on from there. Anyway, I'm going to go for a swim now, and then it's afternoon tea time, and I think we'll continue tomorrow. So that's 50 metres. Rightio, so I've rolled all the cable out. So what we got here is we got 25mm square aluminium bundle aerial conductor, and that's for the inverter AC output. So that's feeding electricity back to the main switchboard up in the house. Then we got a 6mm square copper earth wire, and then here we got 6mm square copper. That will be for the AC auxiliary input. That's where the inverter gets its AC power from the grid. And here we got a solar PV cable, 4mm square, heavy duty. And I'm just running that up to the house, and that's just in case shading is going to be a bit of a problem for me in winter. It may or may not be, but if it is going to be a problem, this allows me to put a string of solar panels on the house facing west, and that will get me prolonged solar generation in the afternoon and early evening. Yeah, so that's it. That's a bundle. So we just had a storm come through, so I had to quickly stop work and go inside. We had a lightning strike very, very close by. Well, that's the conduit run down to the solar cabinet, all done. That was actually the easier part. So here at the house we go from heavy duty conduit over to medium duty conduit, and then it runs up on the inside of that timber screen there. And this is under the house. I've just got the cable lying out on the ground so I can thread the conduit along it. And I'm doing that because it's such a tortuous path. I would never be able to draw the wires through the conduit. So here we go, up and over the cross bracing. I'm getting ready to backfill the trench. Now, because with this trench I haven't gone the full 600 deep like you normally would, and that's purely just because there's just way too much rock here and it's really hard to dig trenches, or holes around here for that matter. So I've only gone probably about 400 mil deep. So because of that, we just got to cover the conduit with some concrete. There we go, the conduit has been covered by concrete, roughly about somewhere between 100 and 150 mil cover. What's that, roughly somewhere between 4 and 6 inches. So I'm just going to backfill this trench, throw the blocks of turf back in. Yeah, I'm just wanting to fill this trench in because next week or so the bloke is coming to service our sewage treatment system, so he usually brings his ute down. So yeah, I better get that done. And there's the switchboard. And here's the changeover switch in the switchboard. So currently it's set to the solar system. If something was to go wrong there, then we can always switch it back down to mains. And down here, this is the solar supply main switch. The circuit breaker here, that is the auxiliary supply to the solar cabinet. That is the grid supply to the inverter. And here's the solar cabinet. Just wanted to show how I finished that trim off. I sort of notched it in. So yeah, I reckon that looks pretty neat. That's worked out quite well. I'm happy with that. Yeah, I was getting a bit sick and tired of the breeze slamming the doors into my back, so I just made these rather simple door stays. It's just a bit of 5mm gal rod, and when you're not using it, it simply just goes in there like that. And then when you open the doors, you just use the door stay like so. It pops in a hole there, and that's your simple door stay. There's one on both doors. So as you can see, it's all wired up and is running. I wasn't going to show any of that because it's not very exciting to look at. Basically, here's the inverter, here's our battery, and here's our combiner box. So that's where the two solar feeds come in, and they come into this box, and I've got them going into 15 or 16 amp fuses. The reason why I'm using fuses is that they are very quick to clear any fault, that they are very quick to disconnect. And I've got two surge diverters here, which is on both the positive and the negative, and they are shunted directly down to earth. And the reason for that is we are prone to lightning strike here, and here's your PV array DC isolator. And then from the combiner box, it goes over to the inverter. And the battery leads that I use, that is the Growwatt L1 cable kit. So that came with the battery leads and a comms cable. So what else I've done here is I've put in a pair of 160 amp fuses. And you don't have to put them in, but I've just put them in because there's a lot of stored energy in that battery. And should anything ever go wrong, those fuses surely will save the day. Right, so what we've got down the bottom here is our AC load center. This 2-pole breaker you see here, that is the AC output. Although I'm actually not using both poles because as per the Australian wiring rules, you're not supposed to switch your neutral. This breaker over here, that is for the mains auxiliary coming back to the inverter. And this big clunker here, that is the AC input changeover switch, so you can switch from either grid supply or generator supply. And this junction box here, that's basically where the bimetallic lugs is. So that's where we transition from aluminium cables back to copper cables. Yeah, so I guess that's pretty much it in a nutshell. Today is actually the first day that the system's been running the whole day. We got it online yesterday, and so far so good. It seems that we can run on solar power pretty much up to about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. It's been rather overcast today, and then from mid-afternoon, from mid to late afternoon, it then begins to take a bit of power from the battery. The way things are looking, I don't think the battery is going to get us through the night, but it looks like it'll probably make it into sort of early to mid-evening, probably a bit after dinner. So right now here, it's mid-February in southeast Queensland. Our latitude is 29 degrees south. So this morning we started with the battery being only 5% charged, and we sort of had a partially overcast day, and by about 11 o'clock this morning it was fully charged, and it's now 5:30 in the afternoon. So let's just have a look here, see how we're traveling. So we'll just toggle through this. So we're down to 78% on the battery. Since yesterday and today we have produced a total of 25 kilowatt hours from the solar panels. So here that's your AC auxiliary in, and currently that is not needed. We'll just toggle through these. So currently we're getting a 1.6 amp from the panels. The house is consuming about 5.6 amps, and we're drawing just under 20 amps from the battery. The inverter is putting out 240 volts. Currently the grid is at 244 volts. So what I think we might do, I'll come back with a bit of an update on this system, let's say in spring, September, October or something like that, and we'll be able to look at our power bills, and we'll see how this performs over autumn and winter, and I'll get to see this if shading is going to be much of a problem, and if so, we'll try and deal with it and see what the outcome of that is. Rightio, well I think that's pretty much it. There's not much more to show really. That's the system. It's working. Stay tuned for the update. Rightio guys, let's close this thing up, and that's it. Job finished. Long last. Alright guys, cheers. Thanks for watching.